Focus on the man in the checked shirt. In a moment, he's on the floor, wounded in the midriff. A pager in his bag or on his belt has exploded. CCTV from another shop shows a man check his pager before it too blows up at his side. Scenes like this playing out hundreds of times across Lebanon within the space of an hour. A targeted, coordinated, highly technical attack.
These pagers exploded while people were on the road, going about their daily lives, basically, in supermarkets and hospitals, driving their cars, getting their kids from school. So it's a huge blow.
Hezbollah had reportedly switched communications from cell phones to pagers to bypass Israeli infiltration attempts. The Reuters news agency, citing security sources, reported the targeted pagers had been supplied just in the last 3 months. The scale of the assault evident at hospitals around the country. Appeals made for blood donors to come forward. Nearly 3,000 people reported injured, including Hezbollah fighters and medics. And according to Iranian media, Iran's ambassador to Lebanon.
Israel is clearly pushing the boundaries and seeing how far it can get away with. The message to Israel so far has been from the international community writ large, has been you can get away with a lot. 41,000 people dead in Gaza and the war continues.
Israel hasn't confirmed or denied responsibility, but few are genuinely asking whether Israel did it. The more salient question, why now? Why unveil the extent of its penetration of Hezbollah's communications network? One theory, preparation for a large-scale conventional attack. For days, rumours have swirled that Israel was on the verge of escalating its months-long conflict with Hezbollah. Last night, its security cabinet made the return of more than 60,000 evacuated civilians to their homes in Israel's north an official war goal. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is also reported to be ready to replace his Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, with someone less cautious about expanding the war. Even Gallant, though, was yesterday resisting US pressure to de-escalate. Some Israeli analysis points to what Israel said was a preemptive attack on Hezbollah missile launch sites last month, as having reassured Netanyahu about the likely cost in Israeli civilian lives of an escalation. Another theory that the pager attacks were a reprisal. Israel's internal security agency today said it had thwarted a Hezbollah plan to assassinate a former senior Israeli security official. This evening, Hezbollah put out a statement on its TV station blaming Israel for the attacks and saying it would receive fair punishment in turn.
Well, joining me now from Beirut is the author and journalist Kim Ghatas. Kim, it's great to have you back on the programme. Just describe to us, if you can, the panic, the feeling in Beirut at 3:30 this afternoon when those pages exploded one after another.
I'm afraid the connection is a bit unstable, so I missed the question. But I think you're asking me about the mood in Beirut this afternoon, which was just one of chaos and absolute mayhem from 3:30 onwards for the last few hours. You could just imagine that these pagers were going off across the country, mostly in Beirut, but also in the south and in the Bekaa, and actually also in Syria. And these small explosions going off in grocery shops next to you, on a moped, somebody driving next to you, just going off everywhere. And then the wailing of sirens throughout the afternoon, hospitals overwhelmed everywhere. It was absolute chaos and mayhem and fear, because people didn't instantly understand what was going on. It was one explosion and then another, and then it was generalized across the country. People were afraid if they were carrying a pager or a phone that it might happen to them, because as targeted as this was, and we assume it was an Israeli targeted operation against Hezbollah operatives, you could be standing next to somebody. It's not perfect technology. Doctors use pagers in this country. So there have been most likely civilians injured as well. And now, of course, the Lebanese are wondering, what next and what does this mean? Which I assume are the questions you want to ask me too.
Indeed, I was going to get onto that. But I mean, just to say, the Israelis have so far said nothing. Let's see what they say, if they say anything at all further down the line. But I mean, what is the kind of guesswork about how they, whoever did this, how they managed to do this?
I'm not a technical expert. There are a lot of speculations. I'm not a pager expert. What we do know is that Hezbollah tried to ditch more high-tech communication methods because they were being targeted for assassination. So Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, gave instructions to stop using your WhatsApp messaging app, your iPhones, disconnect your CCTVs because the enemy, Israel, he said, is going into your homes and finding out where you are, what you're doing, and at what time. So they opted for a more low-tech technology, pagers. And as far as we understand, this was a new batch of pagers they'd gotten into the country just a few months ago.
Right.
How exactly these were detonated? Were they rigged in advance? Can you make a pager explode via high-frequency interference and ignite the battery? I'm just not enough of an expert, and I think the investigation in Lebanon will take its course as well.
And now to the most important question, Kim. Hezbollah and the Israeli government have been sort of, exchanging artillery and insults and threats all year long since October the 7th. Is this the trigger that could ignite the wider war?
We keep waiting for that trigger, and one day it will come. I don't know whether this is the one. I've been saying for some months now that Iran and Hezbollah, partners, allies, don't want a wider regional war. Israel has clearly understood that, and it has been pushing the limits of what it can do, targeting Iranian assets in Syria, targeting Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, killing Hezbollah leader in August, killing Hamas leader in Tehran as well, Ismail Haniyeh, and finding out that the fire it receives in return is still contained. I know that's not what it feels like for residents of northern Israel, but Hezbollah and Iran's responses have been fairly pragmatic and restrained, and very often choreographed and telegraphed in advance. But what's happening here is what I call a game of Middle East roulette. You keep trying and pushing and pushing. And at one point, you push too far and you do ignite a regional conflagration, which the Biden administration has warned Israel repeatedly not to do. What Hezbollah does now and what Israel's intentions were, we'll find out over the next 48 hours. Did Israel think that it could do a final sort of devastating blow for against Hezbollah, or is this a prelude to a large-scale military operation against Lebanon while Hezbollah is dealing with the aftermath of this chaos?
Okay, it's certainly very humiliating for them. Thank you very much, Kim Ghattas, speaking to us there from Beirut.